Played on Sunday, and I showed up for practice. That I didn't get high and come to a game. I never did that. That's one thing. I loved the game of football. I played the game of football.
Chuck Muncie was a football superstar, known as one of the best running backs of his time. But behind the glory, Muncie struggled with cocaine addiction. This addiction grew stronger and stronger, eventually forcing him to retire early. It got worse, and his drug problems landed him in prison. Harry Vance, Chuck Muncie, was a top American football running back in the NFL, playing for the New Orleans Saints and San Diego Chargers from 1976 to 1984. He made it to the Pro Bowl 3 times and tied the NFL season record for rushing touchdowns in 1981. Unfortunately, his amazing career was cut short by his cocaine addiction. But before we tell you all the details, make sure to subscribe.
At my lowest point when I was incarcerated in federal prison, I got busted.
In his senior year in 1976, Chuck Muncie started using cocaine. This marked the beginning of a troubling chapter in his life. After the 1982 season, one of his former New Orleans Saints teammates, Don Reese, revealed that they had used cocaine together during their time with the team. Muncie admitted to cutting down on his cocaine use after being traded to the San Diego Chargers, but he was still struggling with alcohol and marijuana. He went through his first round of rehabilitation, hoping to get his life back on track. Despite his efforts, he missed a bed check and a practice during training camp, which led to another 3 weeks of rehabilitation. Muncie decided to retire from football because he needed to focus on his personal life. He found it too hard to balance drug rehabilitation with the demands of playing professional football. In the late 1980s, things took a turn for the worse. A police officer found Muncie unwashed and homeless outside Memorial Stadium in Berkeley. His struggles continued, and in 1989, he was sentenced to 18 months in a federal prison in California after pleading guilty to trying to sell 2 ounces of cocaine to a friend. His prison sentence did change him for the good. After serving his prison sentence, Muncie dedicated himself to giving back to the community. He began working with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, helping young people find a better path in life. In 1997, he took his efforts even further by establishing the Chuck Muncie Youth Foundation in Antioch, California. This nonprofit organization focused on mentoring at-risk youth and offering a variety of free services. They provided medical care, childhood immunizations, and even tattoo removal for gang members. The foundation also organized camps for children with chronic illnesses, giving them a chance to enjoy life despite their health challenges. Muncie didn't stop there. He led a mentoring program for athletes at his alma mater in Berkeley, guiding young sports talents and helping them navigate their careers. In addition to these efforts, he ran a recruiting service that evaluated high school football players, helping them get noticed by colleges. Reflecting on his journey, Muncie said, "Everything I did and everything I went through in my life has allowed me to do the things I'm doing now." Keeping his personal struggles aside, his legacy was an exemplary one. Muncie had an impressive 9-season career in the NFL, finishing with 6,002 rushing yards, 263 receptions for 2,123 yards, 20 kickoff returns for 432 yards, and a total of 74 touchdowns. Remarkably, he also completed 4 passes, all for touchdowns, with 3 of them going to his teammate Wes Chandler, giving him a stellar passer rating of 141.4. From 1976 to 1984, Muncie was one of the best in the league, ranking 7th in rushing yards and 4th in touchdowns. By the time he retired, his 71 rushing touchdowns were the 9th most in NFL history. Even at the time of his death in 2013, he was still 5th in career rushing yards for the New Orleans Saints. His 19 touchdowns in a single season and 43 total touchdowns with the San Diego Chargers had only been surpassed by LaDainian Tomlinson. Muncie also shares a Chargers record with Tomlinson and Clarence Williams for scoring 4 rushing touchdowns in a single game, which he achieved against Denver in 1981. In the playoffs, he holds several franchise records, including 110 rushes for 516 yards, an average of 86 yards per game, 644 career yards from scrimmage, and 2 games with over 100 rushing yards. Muncie's achievements earned him a spot in the Saints Hall of Honor and recognition on the Chargers' 40th and 50th anniversary teams. His talent was widely acknowledged. The Los Angeles Times praised his size, speed, and power, while the Miami News noted his combination of strength and elegance. UT San Diego called him the most talented running back of his era, and the San Francisco Chronicle suggested that he could have been the greatest running back in NFL history, comparing him to a more refined version of Jim Brown if he had the discipline of players like Walter Payton or Roger Craig. Even Jim Brown himself remarked that Muncie's lack of dedication was the only thing holding him back. However, Muncie's career was also marked by personal struggles. While with the New Orleans Saints, he frequently missed or slept through team meetings. Saints quarterback Archie Manning often had to remind Muncie of his role in upcoming plays because it was clear that Muncie wasn't focused on football during the week. Muncie felt the sting of not being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame or the Chargers Hall of Fame, admitting that his own choices were to blame. He described himself as a functioning addict during his time with the Chargers, often using cocaine after games and sometimes staying high for days. His former teammate Don Reese once said that Muncie had to be Superman to perform at such a high level despite his addiction. Interestingly, Muncie was one of the first players to wear glasses or goggles while playing. He started wearing glasses at Arizona Western College after realizing they improved his nearsightedness during practice. Throughout his career, he wore thick black frames, eventually switching to sports goggles. While with the Saints, he was featured in a full-page ad by glassmaker PPG for their shatter-resistant glasses. Decades later, in the 2010s, NBA players were seen as hipsters for wearing similar thick black glasses. His career, too, was an extraordinary one. Muncie was picked by the New Orleans Saints in the first round of the 1976 NFL Draft, taken third overall. He and the Saints' second-round pick, Tony Galbraith, formed a dynamic backfield duo that coach Hank Stram nicknamed Thunder and Lightning. Muncie had a standout career with the Saints. After the 1979 season, he played in the Pro Bowl and was named the most valuable player of the game. He made history as the first Saints player to reach the 1,000-yard rushing mark, setting a then-team record with 1,198 yards in 1979. However, his time in New Orleans wasn't without challenges. Coming from the more liberal environment of Berkeley, he faced a harsh culture shock in New Orleans. His house and car were frequently vandalized by racists, even though he lived in a nice neighborhood. Muncie often expressed his unhappiness living there. Saints coach Dick Nolan grew frustrated with Muncie's frequent tardiness to meetings and practices. After the Saints started the 1980 season with an 0-4 record, they traded Muncie to the 4-0 San Diego Chargers. With the Chargers, Muncie thrived, earning Pro Bowl selections twice as part of their high-scoring Air Coryell offense. He appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated twice during the NFL playoffs. Muncie's best season came in 1981 when he ran for 1,144 yards and scored 19 touchdowns, tying the then NFL season record for rushing touchdowns. He was instrumental in the Chargers' famous 41-38 playoff win over the Miami Dolphins, known as the Epic in Miami, where he rushed for 120 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 94 yards in the AFC title game, known as the Freezer Bowl. Muncie helped lead the Chargers to 2 AFC West Division championships. The Chargers later traded Muncie to the Miami Dolphins for a second-round draft pick. At the time, Muncie was the NFL's 13th leading rusher of all time with 6,702 yards. However, the trade was voided when a drug test conducted by the Dolphins revealed cocaine in his system. Following this, Muncie entered a drug rehabilitation center in Arizona for a month. On November 15th, the NFL suspended him indefinitely, and he never played another NFL game. In March 1985, Chargers owner Alex Spanos declared that Muncie would never play for San Diego again, even if his suspension was lifted. Muncie retired from football in 1985, ending a career that was both remarkable and troubled. After his retirement, he lived in relative quiet until his passing. On May 13, 2013, Muncie suffered a heart attack and died in Paris, California, which is located near Los Angeles. That is it for this one, but if you happen to like NFL legends, make sure to check out our latest videos on our channel NFL Icons about Bob Hayes. I'm sure you will love it.